the Jacksonville Jaguars made an announcement overnight. And I was just about to go to bed, and I'm surfing around, and I'm seeing comments about Urban Meyer, and then, bam, I go to the source, and there it is.
Yeah,
And
pretty
then,
crazy stuff. Embarrassing episode for the Jaguars and Urban Meyer. And, I've been very much an apologist for Urban Meyer on Twitter and taking people on and basically complained that, ESPN, for lack of a better term, because they've kind of been one of the ones banging the drum, maybe Yahoo to a point. I don't know. Whoever covers the NFL closely from a 5 mile up in the air view have been very active, really, from the day he was hired in writing hit pieces against him and saying, negative things about him and how things are going and quoting players. And my feeling was, none of these guys, I mean, let's think the Browns were 0-16 5 or 6 years ago. Are any of those guys still on the Browns last year when they win a playoff game? Maybe 5, 6, 8, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But my feeling is when the Jaguars are good again, none of the players who are there now are going to be there. And it was Urban Meyer's job to go in there and shake things up and identify who's going to be part of the solution, who's going to be part of the problem, and get rid of the problem people and upgrade. That's what the Browns did. Every year they upgraded 6 or 7 spots, 6 or 7 spots, 6 or 7 spots. And they went, 3 wins, 7 wins. And then last year beat the Steelers in the playoffs, just something unheard of. So for the Browns, if you followed their history since they came back in 2000 or whatever year it was. So he had a very difficult job. And yet, as I logged on to ESPN this morning and I opened their story, and they had a chronology of everything that had gone wrong since January 14th when he was hired, beginning with hiring the Iowa guy who, treated his players bad and had the racial epithets, the episode with the Cincinnati. I didn't find not flying back with the team a problem. I found the issue in the bar was the problem to me because family, if there's time off for these guys, they can go their separate ways. It's professional football. This isn't 7th grade basketball where we all ride the bus home together. I would think there's other instances where a coach is not flown back on a team plane, but there were so many things that just accumulated that finally Shad Khan, who has been the dutiful wife and stood behind this guy, from day one, finally just said enough is enough. And, I feel bad for all the people who relocated and moved to Texas or moved to Florida rather to work with him. I got Texas in my mind because Fernando Lovo, who was here at Ohio State for a while, went down there to work for him, and he bugged out before the first season was done. So, yeah, I don't know. It just a terrible episode, humbling, embarrassing blip on his coaching career. People forget Lou Holtz tried to coach the New York Jets for 1 year and it didn't work out. He came back and won national championships later on in his career at Notre Dame. So, is that what's going to happen? Is he done with coaching forever? Can he segue back in at Fox? Because big game Bob Stoops really doesn't bring a whole lot to the table there on Fox. So maybe he just moves right back in there between Leinart and Quinn and they go on with it.
Steve, you say it'll be a humbling experience. I wonder if it will be.
Yeah,
it's not a very humble guy.
So arrogant and so aloof. I think he's aloof more than he's arrogant.
Yeah.
I just think he doesn't recognize what he doesn't recognize. If you're just not somebody who can do anything for him, he just has very little to no use for you. And this is the guy that wrote the Above the Line book and all this other hoo-ha, him and Tim Kite with this ERO stuff. And, it was say one thing and do an absolute different. So that was kind of my feeling on that.
I remember when Urban Meyer was hired and we had the press conference and a few of us hung out afterwards. We were just chatting with the OSU SID, and then he introduced us to Urban and he and Shelley were walking out, and I know Kevin was there as well, I think. And so we're saying where we're from, and I was from an independent side at the time, and he's like looking around. He's like, "Which one of you is from Rivals?" Like he wants to know the recruiting people because that's that's where the lifeblood is for Urban, and that's independent site. Blah. I want to know who, who the recruiting service guy is, and it is. I never got the feeling that if you couldn't really do anything for him, he didn't really have much for you, and that's where all of this circle of closeness or whatever circle of trust comes from. But that timeline that I saw on ESPN this morning was fun. Not funny, but some of it was funny because it starts off with the Chris Doyle hire, and then the next egregious thing is signing Tim Tebow to see if he can make the team, and then it goes on to something else. And it's like I just think there's such a fervor from it's so much of Urban Meyer is clickbait, and it works and it moves the needle, and so he is the microscope is on him, and it's partly I guess his fault for not recognizing that and not changing what he does because of that. But the kicking the kicker, tell me how hard he kicked him. Tell me, was it playful? Tell me what whatever. And also, who among us has not wanted
to kick a kicker?
To kick a kicker. I mean, it's not like he's kicking a football player. He's kicking a kicker. But I agree with being fired. It's just it wasn't going to work. Nobody was going to allow it to work, including Urban Meyer.
Yeah, he went into a nearly impossible situation, poured gasoline all over it, and then lit it on fire. And that's my way of saying that he was not set up in a situation to have great success, but he was his own worst enemy in a lot of ways and a lot of decisions, and just made it, that's something that he could have probably ridden out 2-3 years, but, we get through whatever it is, 12 games, and now he's out. And, certainly I don't know if his sense of legacy is going to allow him to go out on that note. He may have to sit there and spend a couple years off in the periphery to rehabilitate his image or whatever. But I wouldn't expect this to be his last foray, just because he doesn't want to have that as the stain on the career resume. But it's certainly. You do feel bad, as was mentioned. I mean, a lot of people uprooted to move to be part of this. Oh, this is going to work, and now there are a lot of people that are playing out the string who will be there through the end of the season, and then will be scattered in the wind. But the good thing is, I think most NFL types, they get themselves into that cycle, and they just keep turning up elsewhere or whatever. But I did not stay up in time for the news, and I got a text message about 6 this morning from somebody on our staff just saying Urban Meyer ? And I started looking. I was like, oh, I guess I missed something last night. So there you go.